Namato Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. On this Poson day, I am invited to give a short reflection by Venerable Sumana, who is the Chief Abbott of London Mindfulness Meditation Center. So I am very grateful to be part of this celebration. This is Ajhan Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center in Aberdeen, Scotland. I have known Venerable Sumana for a long time, even before I became a monk. And I met him when he was visiting Nepal. And recently he also sent me a picture that I never thought that picture exists. That picture when I was a young man and the Venerable Sumana was visiting Nepal. It was so nice to see that picture. And over the period of a time, we occasionally meet each other in different time, different places. And somehow when I moved to England in 2005, I became very close to Venerable Sumana, and I ask or request for help almost all the matters. So, and now he has established this meditation center in London, hoping to facilitate and also establishing a proper center, a Buddhist center, which is very rejoicing and appreciating. And also I hope and wish him for the success. Even when I established this meditation center in Aberdeen, he has been very helpful and helping me different ways to establish and advising me on official matters and on other events. So I'm very glad to have him and his support throughout the time. So today I am invited to give a short reflection and my thoughts to you all who are observing the Poson Poya Day. I believe that Poson Poya Day is one of the great days in Sri Lankan history. Little did I know in the past that this Poya Day or the Purnima or the full moon is so important until I was invited by Venerable Sumana to give a talk, and I just glanced the history. And I realized that it's a really, really important day in Sri Lankan history. The day when the Arhat Mahinda from India visited Sri Lanka to spread Buddhism. And after that, Sri Lanka became a Buddhist country. So on the basis of that, when Venerable Sumana asked me that what topic have I prepared or have I got in my mind. So I thought that I will speak on Dhammaduta, the messenger of the Dhamma. Duta means messenger, and this messenger and the Dhamma, Buddha's teachings, the Dhamma. So before going into the Dhammaduta, I would like to give you a background, a little bit of a background about it. The Buddha was born in Nepal, in Lumbini, now over 2,600 years ago. And he left the palace at the age of 29, which everyone knows, and spent about 6 years exploring, studying different methods of liberation, different theories, different philosophies. And later he realized that those methods of practice or philosophies are not leading to the liberation. So he went on practicing by himself. After his self-dedication and determination to be liberated, he finally became the Buddha at the age of 35 in Buddha Gaya. The Buddha Gaya, this became the central point of the pilgrimage for all the Buddhists. As even the Buddha said in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, that these places will be a place that a Buddhist should visit to reflect and to remember and show our appreciation to the Buddha. I have been to Buddha Gaya several times, and I even stayed about 10 days visiting Buddha Gaya temple every single day and chanting and meditating. A place, I would say, a true spiritual place. And as a Buddhist, we should visit once in our lifetime. It's worth visiting. And particularly the Bodhi tree, majestically standing there, so beautiful and so calm, so powerful. For the meditation, again, even more powerful. Anyway, so after Buddha enlightened, the scriptures says that Buddha stayed for 7 weeks around the vicinity of the Bodhi tree, reflecting in different dhammas and also showing his appreciation to the Bodhi tree, and also contemplating on whom he should go and teach. And there was even one of the nights he was contemplating on that and thought that the Dhamma that he had discovered is so sublime and so hard to understand. Particularly those who are deluded, so-called dust in their minds, clouded, the mind is clouded. It would be very difficult for them to understand that teachings. And he even thought that he will not go out and teach. And the Tipitaka says that the Lord Brahma, Sahampati, realizing the Buddha's mind, he come down from the Brahma Loka, paid respect to the Buddha 3 times, and requested that Venerable Lord, please reconsider and teach the Dhamma. And the Buddha again reflected it as he was requested, and realized that there are people who is capable of understanding the Dhamma. And then he simply replied to the Brahma that he will teach the Dhamma. Let those who have ears hear it. Aparuta tesang amata Dhamma. Yeah? So let them hear the Dhamma. And that is the beginning of his compassion, to let everyone knows the way out from these sufferings. And through there, Buddha went to give a talk, or a first sermon to the 5 ascetics. When 5 ascetics were previously helping the Buddha while he was practicing for the becoming the Buddha, and because of their preconcept they had that one should not eat and pursue the practice properly. But Buddha ate, having understood the path was not the right path. So he ate, and after the Buddha had eaten some food, these 5 ascetics left him, saying that the Buddha had given up his practice. But Buddha didn't stop, despite his fellow friends left him in the forest alone. And with that, he became the Buddha. So after he became the Buddha, he went to see these 5 friends, old friends, in Isipatana Mirgadayavana, the forest in Varanasi. And there, Buddha taught so-called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, one of the first discourses that Buddha taught to the 5 ascetics, the old friends. And this sutta is one of the very, very important sutta, and I normally call it is the foundation of all the Theravada teachings. All the Theravada teachings. It is not just the teachings, but also Buddha was reflecting that there are 2 types of people seeking for happiness and liberation, and in different ways. One will go hard way, other people will go soft way. And neglecting these 2, Buddha introduced the middle path. And that middle path led whoever practiced it to the liberation. So the first discourse, after the completion of this discourse, the Kondanya got the Dhamma eye, and he requested for the ordination. And that's how he became the first disciples of the Buddha. And followed by, Buddha again gave different discourses, and rest all other 4 also became a monk. And after they all 5 became monk, who became the first disciples of the Buddha, Buddha taught Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the discourse on non-self. When Buddha gave this discourse on non-self, all 5 become the Arahant. that same year, the Buddha also got other disciples led by Prince the Yesakulaputta, who also felt not happy in a family life. And that's how he also came to contact with the Buddha, saying that, come here, here is peace. And after hearing the teachings, the sermon from the Buddha, Yesakulaputta, he became the Buddha, he became the monk, and later his fellow friends also became the monk. And the scripture says that after Yesakulaputta and his fellow friends became a monk, there were 61 arhats at that time with the Buddha. And after having these 60 disciples, those who are fully accomplished, after hearing the Buddha, Buddha told them to go and spread the teachings by saying that I am fully accomplished, so you are free from greed, hatred, and delusion. You are also enlightened. Now go on, spread the Dhamma for the good and benefit of both celestial beings and human beings. In Pali it says, Charata Pikkave Charikang Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Lokanukampaya. Go forth, monks, for the benefit and happiness of celestial beings and human beings, with the compassion to the world. And that was the first missionary religious mission summoned by the Buddha. In religious history, when we read, we find that Buddha is the first person in the religious history to send missionary monks. And that's how Buddhism spread so quickly in the Jambudvipa, so-called present-day India and Nepal. And Buddhism spread. And Buddhism became one of the major faiths, from the beggars, low caste, to the high caste, to the kings, become followers of the Buddha and practiced. And thousands of people become liberated, that we can find from the books. And over the period of this time, after Buddha passed away, Buddha's disciples, the venerable monks, decided to compile the teachings. And that's how become the Tipitaka, through the councils. So there was a council at the after Buddha passed, Buddha's parinibbana, the cremation, 3 months later. I recited all these Buddha's teachings and compiled, and later on, 100 years later, there was another council took place to purify or compile it once again. And then later, about 300 years later, King Asoka the Great held or sponsored another third Buddhist council. And in this council, under the patronage of King Asoka, sent different missionaries to different places. And among those missionary monks, the missionary monks went to Sri Lanka, Siam, and even to Nepal, called Himawanta Pradesh. So we have basically the same time of Buddhism in Sri Lanka and in Nepal and even in Thailand, Burma, Cambodia time. Although we do have a legends saying that even the Buddha visited these places, or even the previous Buddhas visited these places. Like in Sri Lanka also, there is a belief that pre-Adi Buddhas visited Sri Lanka. And a Buddha also, Buddha Sakyamuni also visited a couple of times, I think 3 times. And in Nepal, obviously, we have a belief and legends of a Buddha visited previous Buddha's existence, and as well as present Sakyamuni Buddha visited. So in Thailand, in Myanmar as well, a Buddha visited there, but these visits may not be a historical facts in Sri Lanka or in Myanmar or in Burma, in Thailand. But this King Asoka as a missionary or a mission to these places historically recorded. And that is the essential fact and historical evidence. And this historical evidence also is the foundation for the spread of Buddhism and around the country, and as well as that missionary, the mission that King Asoka sent, preserved Buddhism. If the King Asoka didn't send the mission, these missionary monks to other places, by now Buddhism is already wiped out by the Muslim Turk invasion in India later, and then followed by the other suppressions. So we are very fortunate to have the Emperor King Asoka and his support to Buddhism. And with that support, he sent the second missionary monks after the Buddha to spread Buddhism not only in one continent, but other parts of the country, other parts of the continents. And one of the mission went to Sri Lanka that we believe it happens on today over 2,000 years ago, when the Mahinda, the prince who became the monk and later believed that he also attained the Arhat, went to Sri Lanka to spread Buddhism. And that's how in Sri Lanka got Buddhism established. When I was reading and watching before I give this talk, I had a glance on this history of a Poson fire. And it says that the King Devanampiya was hunting in the forest. At that time, Mahinda, King Arhat Mahinda, has already arrived in Sri Lanka and standing on one of the rocks. That's now become Mahintale. And Arhat Mahinda called King Devanampiya with his name, Tissa. And the king was so surprised to hear his name. No one would dare to call the king's name. And that's how he come to contact with Mahinda, Arhat Mahinda, and Arhat Mahinda taught so-called the Chulahatti Sutta, which is from the Majjhima Nikaya 27. And that's how I believe Sri Lankan history changed. And it's very admirable, and also we should remember that all Sri Lankan Buddhists have led so many leadership to spread and to establish Buddhism around the world from the past and even this 20th century. In 2005, I had an opportunity to visit Sri Lanka for the first time. I remember when I was studying in Thailand, my master's degree on Buddhism, we had 3 Sri Lankan monks in my class. And among these Sri Lankan monks, all 3 were so well versed in the suttas. Whenever we had discussions in a classroom regarding the suttas or regarding the Buddhist teachings, all 3 would argue or with presenting the suttas from this and that. This sutta says so, this sutta says so, says that, like that. And that really inspired me. And even I had a thought that I would like to go to study in Sri Lanka. But never it happened. After the completion of a master's, straight away, my destiny took the UK. So in 2005, early 2005, I came to UK. So during that time of being a student in Mahachula in Thailand, I really admired those 3 my classmates, monks. And 2 of them are still very well-known scholars now, particularly Venerable Piyaratna, Dr. Piyaratna. After a master's, he also continued PhD in the same university, and later he became a lecturer. And later, a few years ago, he was also appointed as the associate professor. And I believe this is the first Buddhist monk, or foreign Buddhist monk, or foreign person to receive such a great title, assistant professor. And now he is the dean of a Buddhist faculty, and I do sometimes speak with him. So ever since, I was always wanted to visit Sri Lanka, but never happened. And that visit, again, was thinking to go and study, but never happened. But however, in 2005, later 2005, I had an opportunity to visit Sri Lanka for 10 days in a group, where I had a chance to visit some of or many of these important places related to the historical facts. Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Galavihara, these places, and Temple of Tooth, and Bodhi tree, Sri Mahabodhi tree. And I still remember when I visited this Sri Mahabodhi tree, I was so touched. I remember I was standing at the stairs, the white stairs that take you to the top, the ground of where the Bodhi tree. I just stand up there and watching the Bodhi tree. I was so calm. I was so connected. I felt so happy, and I I still feel the tears were just dropping from my eyes, the tear of joy. And that picture is still with me in my head. Such a wonderful moment, feeling that connection. I felt though that I was standing next to the Buddha. And we had a chance to visit two temple and it was organized specially to visit our group. And also I had a chance to visit the president at that time was Rajapaksa, and he invited all of us for a lunch in his residence. So it was quite a wonderful time, although it was a short visit, but worthwhile, and learned a lot. And I also saw that so many Sri Lankan people wearing a white and staying in a temple during the Posan, during the full moon days. And so you are also celebrating the full moon, today's full moon, a very special full moon, the Posan, the day when the Arhat Mahinda arrived in Sri Lanka and transformed the old culture and gave this wonderful Dhamma to you all. And after this, again, gradually, as you have all known, and I believe that you are also taught, that Sri Lanka become the safeguard or the protector of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, throughout the history, throughout the time. And also, over the period of this time, Sri Lanka become a hub for the Buddhist studies, and that's how the Buddha Ghosa went and studied and compiled the commentaries. And meanwhile, other scholars also went and studied. And not only the foreigners visited Sri Lanka for the Buddhist studies, but also Sri Lankan Buddhist monks as well as lay people contributed for the establishment of Buddhism in different places. So they become a Dhammaduta as well. In this 20th century, there's so many countries were influenced or are influenced and also established Buddhist centers solely because the contribution that Sri Lanka had done. Dhammadutas from Sri Lanka visited these places and successfully established Buddhism in those places. Nepal, the place where the Buddha was born, one of them. So Nepal originally influenced by Buddhism during the Buddha's time and even after the Buddha's time. King Asoka, as I said, also sent a missionary monk to Nepal, so-called Himawanta Pradesh, and Majjhima Thera was the leader of that group, as Mahinda was a leader to go to Sri Lanka and establish Buddhism in Nepal. But somehow, because of the political pressure, political suppression, Buddhism completely suppressed, or in a way, destroyed. And it became more harder. Buddhist practices become even more harder, not only practices, all the scriptures and even the religious practices were banned at that time. So around 600 years ago, a Buddhist monk were told to give up monkhood and marry, live a married life. Those who did not do, they were killed or expelled. And that's how Buddhism destroyed. And later, again, when the unification of the Nepal in 18th century began, then Hindu influence again suppressed the remaining Buddhists that time. And later, when the isolation government, or so-called the one family ruled, the prime minister ruled the country for 107 years. At that time, they used all possible ways to burn the scriptures, not allowing teaching the Buddhism, not conversion of the Buddhism, no rituals, any Buddhist rituals, nothing. And that's how Buddhism was suppressed and destroyed. But somehow 1930s, Theravada Buddhism again revived, slowly revived. And gradually, Nepalese ordained into Theravada Buddhism returned to Nepal, but they were expelled after so many times. So they had to go India. And there was a time when the Theravadan monks were expelled from Nepal. That news shocked Sri Lanka. And from Sri Lanka, Venerable Narada traveled to Nepal. And it wasn't pleasant walk. It wasn't pleasant journey. There weren't any roads like now. He had to walk the mountains to get to the Kathmandu Valley. So this goodwill mission from Sri Lanka came to Kathmandu Valley and spoke or had an audience with the Prime Minister at that time. And Venerable Narada beautifully and articulately explained to the Prime Minister, who was the kind of a king running the country. And he was convinced that Buddhist monks are no danger to the country. But it will help the country prosperous. And having audience with this Prime Minister and Venerable Narada from Sri Lanka explained to him about the importance and the way of life of the Buddhist monks. Prime Minister permitted monks to return to the country. And Venerable Dhammaloka, a Nepalese monk who was in India, traveled back as a first person. So Venerable Narada, after that, visited several times to Nepal. And each time when he visited Nepal, something new, special things takes place. And one of them was he brought the Buddha's relics from Sri Lanka and enshrined in Nepal. And that's become one of the first Sri Lankan Chaitya established in Nepal with the Buddha's relics. And after that, every year, this relic's been displayed to venerate, and almost all the time, the high authorities, even the king, visited that place to pay respect, to support the Vesak Day. And after that again, Under the leadership of his guidance and advice, Mahaparita introduced in Nepal. So Mahaparita became part of Buddhist activities in Nepal, and it has been very successful in terms of introducing a new culture to Nepal, and that culture came from Sri Lanka. So this Sri Lankan culture introduced to Nepal, this Mahaparita, and it's widely accepted and widely practiced. I remember my teacher, Sudarsan, Venerable Sudarsan, used to keep all the records of how many times and who had organized this Mahaparita ceremony. And it was started from the king's palace. And later on, it's become normal. And all Buddhists, whoever would like to organize, it's become a wider audience. And it's become a part of Theravada Buddhism in Nepal. And I also found not only Venerable Narada, who contributed as a duta, Dhammaduta, to establish Buddhism and revival of Theravada Buddhism in Nepal. There are other distinguished venerable monks from Sri Lanka visited and contributed a lot. As a Piyadasi Bhante also visited so many times and stayed quite a long time. And not only that, Sri Lankan monks, those who have visited Nepal, significantly helped Nepal to educate and train Nepalese monks in Sri Lanka. Venerable Narada wholeheartedly supported and took so many Nepalese boys to study in Sri Lanka, and not only boys, also nuns. And later other monks also took and give good trainings. And one of even nowadays still happening such things that continued from that day until now. And Venerable Sumana is one of them. So one of the products from having an opportunity to visit Sri Lanka and studied. And Venerable Sorata has been very kind and supporting to all the Nepalese monks too. And this is a part of Nepalese, the Sri Lankan Dhammaduta to Nepal to establish Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism in Nepal, and introducing new culture to Nepal. Even now, most of the Theravadian monks in Nepal trained and educated in Sri Lanka, and they are become the main essential part for the propagation of Buddhism and establishment of Buddhism in Nepal. And not only in Nepal, we can see here in the UK as well. And here in the UK, the missionary monk, the mission, the Dhammaduta, not the monk, Dhammaduta from Sri Lanka began not by the monk, but by a lay person. And we all know him very well. Dhammapala, Anagarika Dhammapala. And obviously, Anagarika Dhammapala not only contributed towards the spread of Buddhism in the UK, but also, in a way, whole world. Through he first fought to free the Buddhist pilgrimages in India and establish Mahabodhi Society, and traveled worldwide spreading Buddha's teachings. So he did a wonderful job. So when he came to UK again, he was successfully establishing a center, so-called Buddhist center, London Buddha Vihara. That was the first Buddhist temple outside of Asia, which was again established under the leadership of Sri Lankan Dhammaduta, then Anagarika Dhammapala, so 1920s. And before that, Buddhism was known vaguely in a Western society. And after the establishment of this proper center in London by the Anagarika Dhammapala, gradually Sri Lankan monks as a Dhammaduta came to stay in London, established the centers, teaching the Dhammas. And I heard, and I believe that when the Anagarika Dhammapala established this this Buddha Vihara, London Buddhist Vihara, he invited Christmas Humphrey to join with him, because Christmas Humphrey was also a very well-known scholar on Buddhism. He started simply because of some family trauma, and he studied Zen Buddhism. He studies Zen Buddhism, and then later on he came to contact with Theravada Buddhism and studied Theravada Buddhism. After he studied Theravada Buddhism, he became a true Buddhist. And he wrote so many books, and some of you already know. When he was invited by the Anagarika Dhammapala to join with him to establish the London Buddhist Vihara, Christmas Humphrey, rather than following the Dhammapala, he established the Buddhist Society of London, Buddhist Society of UK. And later, he also, the Buddhist Society become his kind of product. And now Buddhist Society headquarters also established in his house, and his house become the proper Buddhist Society. So Anagarika Dhammapala was a great Dhammaduta. As a lay person, in a way, he did more job so than the other monks can do. And over the period of time, now you can see that there are so many Sri Lankan temples established to spread Buddhism, to help establishing Buddhism. And there are so many Theravada Buddhist scholars from Sri Lanka that contributed the establishment and advancement of Buddhist scholarship in the world. And so many. And among them, again, there is one man who we should think, one who had done a great Dhammaduta work, was Malalasekara, who was also leading scholar to wrote or to compiled the Buddhist encyclopedia. And he also led the Buddhist conferences during his time. And that's how I remember that even the Buddhist flag also established, also introduced by the Sri Lankan community, the Sri Lankan Buddhists. And even getting the Vesak celebration as a UN recognition about 20 years ago, also led by Sri Lankan Buddhists, the Sri Lankan government, I think. And that's how Vesak Day become the UN declared day in the history. And every Vesak celebration, not only Buddhists nowadays celebrate the Vesak Day, but all other nations also celebrates Buddha's birthday, Buddha's Vesak Day. So that's why, although the Dhammaduta work began by the Buddha, in only 60 monks. But later, after the King Asoka sent these 9 missionary groups into different places, that spread Buddhism in different places, different countries. And in the 20th century, one of the most successful Dhammaduta work that introduced at the beginning was from Sri Lanka and spread and established Buddhist center in different places in the world, different parts of the world, establishing the Buddhist center. Although now it is more so concentrated on sort of a Sri Lankan community, but when it was began, it was more so for the propagation of Buddhism. And now, similar pattern of the way the Anagarika Dharmapala started sending the Buddhist monks to different countries around the world to establish Buddhist center and helping teaching and spreading Buddhism. Thailand has also started too. So Thailand also started the Buddhist missionaries, overseas missionaries, probably about 50 years ago. Although it was started at the 50 years ago, but later they couldn't continue for about 20 years, and recently again reintroduced and become a proper introduced a proper training for 3 months, simply as overseas Dhammaduta monks. And they have to go through this 3 months strict training. So first week is a general work, and so first month a general introduction and a general understanding about the work and the countries, and then the second month 1 month meditation, and then a third the academic education. So after that 3 months training completion, they will be assigned, or they will be given, or they will be certified as the overseas Dhammaduta, and they will be traveling around the world. Once they have completed this 3 months Dhammaduta training, they will be recognized officially as the Dhammaduta, not by only the Sangha, but also by the government of Thailand. So government of Thailand will issue special passport as official monks. So they hold the official passport, and with that gave a lot of flexibility to a Buddhist monks to travel different countries, even coming to the Europe, except the UK, they can travel for 3 months without the visa. So that's how it gave them flexibility to spread or to work in the West. And particularly the Dhammadutas, or the Thai monks as a Dhammaduta working in America, almost all of them had to go through this training and pass this training. So this is a well-organized 3 months training as a Dhammaduta, and officially recognized and given the official title, and as well as the official passport that doesn't require any restrictions as normal people would have to travel different places, different countries. And once they have got this, they will be invited to visit in different places, different temples in different countries, and will be able to stay and work to spread the Dhamma. And here also in Scotland, If I remember, one of the first Buddhist center established was by the Sri Lankan monk Bhante Rewata, Glasgow Buddhist Vihara. I think it's 2001. And later, Thai Buddhist Center established. And that's how the Buddhist Center established in Scotland. And our center, the Varapunya Meditation Center, also established end of 2012, and officially got recognition in 2013, summer 2013. And ever since, our major work is to promote meditation, practice of meditation, and facilitate whoever would like to learn meditation. And I, as the chief or the main person here at the center, I always tell everyone that I'm not here to teach, but I'm here to share. And we all here to learn. We all teach each other. And we will learn each other to grow each other, and helping hands together to heal our hearts together. And that's how we organize the events in a very simple, in a peaceful, which is the way that the center is leading. And this again, I reflect on that the Buddha said that there are two types of worship. The first type is worshiping by presenting material things, like flowers, water, fruits, and other items. And the second is patipatti puja, means practicing in accordance with what Buddha taught. And Buddha praised worshipping the Buddha by practicing as he taught. So now today, you're all, although you cannot visit temple and center to practice, to observe the sila on this Poson important day, with the leadership of Venerable Sumana, you have practiced or you have observed the 8 precepts at your home and decided to practice this day at home, wearing a white cloth, observing the 8 precepts and listening to Dhammas and practicing the teachings. So this way is the real way of worshipping the Buddha. It's called Patipatti Puja. And at the end of the day, you can, with your head up, can say that Dhammanu Dhamma Patipattiya Buddhang Pujemi. I pay respect to the Buddha with this practice. So I'm very glad to hear and also be part of this Poson celebration day, and also would like to thank you, Venerable Sumana, to invite me to be part of it, to hear that you all are practicing to celebrate the full moon, to celebrate the important day, that the day when the Sri Lankan country got the Buddhism. And despite of this pandemic and difficult time, you have put an effort to spare this day to practice, to learn, to show our appreciation, and also being example for your children to follow, to continue to maintain the tradition. And that will be the important factor which helps to preserve the tradition and prevent from falling it down, and maintaining the culture and the Dhamma. And this cultivation will bring only happiness and wisdom to you and to rest of your family. And with that, we can be sure that the Dhamma, the Buddha Dhamma, will be continue for rest of the world. And the Dhamma will continue for good of us, good of all. So I think this is so far is I have said, and I believe that this is this will help you to understand how important the Dhammaduta work that spread the Buddhism, and despite of this over 2,600 years, how wonderful that we receive the teachings, and we as also followers of the Buddha and the practitioners of the Dhamma be a part of the Sangha to spread the teachings. Be the Dhammaduta by yourself. The Dhammaduta to practice within yourself, and also let everyone to practice for the good and happiness of all. As the Buddha said, the very first time when he sent the Dhammadutas for the good and happiness of both humans and celestial beings. So I end my reflection here with the blessings of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. May you be happy, peaceful, successful, stay safe, take care, and all whatever merits that you have accumulated, may this be cause to bring your happiness and for the liberation. May you liberate it in this life, if not in near future. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Bhavatu Sappha Mangalam.